talk about Penn State, Oregon. Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite as it looks right now. Over-under's 49.5. Mr. Big Ten himself over there. Oregon had everything.
Yep.
Where are we going?
So I want to give a shout-out. I did it at the beginning of the show. Shout-out to Karter at the Ohio State-Oregon game when Oregon demolished Ohio State. He sent me this very nice care package of Oregon stuff, anticipating a rematch in the Big Ten championship. It would have been great for content. Ryan Day will invoice you for the ad revenue that we're missing on that.
Send it to the home address.
Yeah,
maybe not Columbus.
Yeah. New Hampshire. Yeah, we'll send up to your New Hampshire home. Well, I want to keep this on because we're talking about the game. So you guys know how I feel about the new Big Ten, and I do really think that there is something to be said about having to travel 2 or more time zones. And it's just kind of the nature of the new conferences that we're living in. Oregon is going to have to travel 3 time zones to Indianapolis. The last time they traveled 2+ time zones was that Wisconsin game where they barely beat them 16-13. Now you can say, well, Dylan, Wisconsin was coming off of a bye. And I'll give you that, right? In terms of player talent, I might not be able to wear this hat. I don't know. I'm not. It makes my head look boxy. Female viewership will be down. Positionally, and my ears, man. Look at that. Look. Okay. Positionally, Oregon, every single position is better at Penn State than Penn State. But Penn State procedurally, they're just more efficient than Oregon. You look at a lot of these deep stats, 4th in EPA per pass. They're 28th in EPA per rush. Oregon's defense 84th in allowing EPA per rush. So there's it's really tough because, again, this is another situation. On paper, Oregon, you look at the players they have, the skill they have, it should be Oregon by a landslide, but you take into account travel time, how far they have to travel. You take into account how efficient Penn State has been. Again, strength of schedule, pretty similar. I want to go Penn State here. There's a part of me that wants to go Penn State here just because of that. Can someone convince me otherwise?
Here's a stat for you. Since becoming the head coach at Penn State, James Franklin is 1-11 against opponents ranked in the top 5.
Hey, I mean that's perfect right there. That's about all I need.
No, I mean I'm with you though. You've been on the Oregon train all year. I have as well, maybe slightly less. Oregon looks beatable. They've looked vulnerable in many games so far this season, but I think they will get beat. I honestly don't think Oregon is going to win the national championship. I don't think Penn State's the team that's going to beat them. I really don't. And the point, not to jump you here, Dylan, but the point I want to look at is in both their matchups against Ohio State and Ohio State's above average, quote unquote, elite defense, best defense both these teams have played. Dylan Gabriel fared a lot better than Drew Aller did. Gabriel was 23 for 34, 341 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 rush yards, and another touchdown. Meanwhile, Drew Aller against Ohio State, 12 for 20, 146 yards, and a pick. That's a stark difference. And both Penn State and Oregon have had elite defenses all year, but I'm willing to trust Dylan Gabriel more to move the ball against Penn State than I am Drew Aller to move the ball in Oregon's defense. You couple that with Oregon's weapons on the outside, they're all getting healthy now. They've established the running game with Jordan James. He's been picking it up the last few weeks. I think this Oregon team will outmatch this Penn State team on the outside with the weapons. I like Oregon here. I do. I think Oregon will get upset in the playoffs. I don't think Penn State's the team that's going to do it.
And also, the number one point going into this game that most people will point to is James Franklin in a big spot. Are you really going to trust that? But this is foreign territory for James Franklin. He doesn't know this isn't Ohio State, Michigan. He might actually win this game. We don't know. But with you mentioned something, Connor. You said Penn State and Oregon, they've been great defenses this year. How much of that is just the Big Ten offenses are awful?
That's true, but that applies to both of them in this case. So I'm
Dylan, what was that little stink eye for? Because these Big Ten offenses are terrible.
They've been poo-poo this year.
I think the defenses in the Big Ten make the offenses look bad. I think you get another level of defense here.
I mean, if they're playing non-conference opponents, and then they're still not putting up great numbers.
Sure, like Nebraska, Colorado. Is that maybe a good data point to look at? Or
that's so weird. Just think about that game, how long ago that was, and how that distorted our view of both of those programs.
Oh, yeah. It feels like 3 years ago.
It feels like 3 years ago, exactly.
Real quick, something I want to point out. But neither of these teams are necessarily explosive on offense. Oregon offensive explosiveness, 31st percentile. Penn State, 33rd. I am going to take the under here again, like the SEC championship. I want to see how well Penn State does on early downs. So far this year, they're 7th in early downs EPA per play, and Oregon isn't great defensively early in series. I do think I'm going to go Penn State here, plus the 3.5. I hate it. I hate backing James Franklin in a big spot, but this Penn State team has been very efficient throughout the whole season, and I think they could trip up Oregon here coming off this travel.
I don't hate that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't feel confident about it. 100%. I think this is easily the toughest conference title game to predict. And because on one hand, I still can't get over the James Franklin factor, because when it comes down to it, and it's a tie game in the fourth quarter, like, do I trust James Franklin and this coaching staff to call the right plays, to put their guys in the right position to get it done? We've seen time and time again, typically he doesn't make it happen in those big moments. They don't call the correct plays. Now, obviously that could change. Small game sample sizes in those spots. But also, Connor, you mentioned it, Oregon's been flirting with trying to lose a lot of these games. I think the key for Penn State here is getting it done early on downs, like Dylan mentioned, and getting it done on the ground. If they can have success on the ground and not force Drew Aller to have to throw the ball too much, I think they can win this game. Go ahead.
I'm going to go counterpoint here. Penn State's number 1 in all of college football in offensive success rate and offensive pass success rate. So that's percentage of plays that generate a positive EPA. They're first in both of those. 55.5% on pass plays.
So what would be a positive EPA, for example?
Any play that generates expected points added.
So what would be an example of that? So a screen pass that goes 5 yards?
That could be. It's situational. It could be, yeah. A screen pass on the 2-yard line that ends up in a touchdown. That's how much of those stats are attributed during garbage time? That's fair. That's fair. I hear that. That's all fair. That's all fair. And I would give Dylan Gabriel the advantage over Drew Aller here. I'm just saying. Yeah. We say like this is an awful offense, and it's not great that the one good defense that we know of that they faced, Ohio State, they looked awful.
Laid an egg.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying that. I don't know if I'm buying it.
I think I like Penn State close. Like I think I like the points. I don't like Penn State outright. I like the points.
I'm trying to thread a needle here. It's tough. This is the toughest preview for me. The one caveat that I was looking at is Penn State gave up 176 rush yards to Ohio State. And we know their running backs haven't been great all year. So if they gave up that much success on the ground against the one elite team they've played this year, why can't Oregon do that? Jordan James has been good lately. If they get a run first offense, if they pick up chunk plays, all of a sudden Dylan Gabriel play action, scramble down the middle. I mean, I think this Penn State defense is susceptible to big plays. I don't know. I would lean Oregon to win, but you guys are right. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game no matter what. I really do.
And I give Dylan crap about the time zone stuff sometimes, but it is a factor.
It's real.
We saw Notre Dame this week go to USC. Yeah, they ended up pulling out that game, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't a
couple late
interceptions.
Yeah,
yeah, and so I don't know. This is by far the hardest conference preview to predict. Dylan, what's going to be the score of this game?
I'm going to say Penn State 21, Oregon 16. I think we get a wonky number from Oregon. Some Dan Lanning trickery somewhere. 2-point conversion, something like that.
Very, very ironic and very odd. You give Penn State the win, predicting their score while you're wearing all the Oregon stuff.
Yeah, I know. I don't like doing it.
Feels a little dirty.
It'd be disingenuous to you, Karter. You were nice enough to send me this stuff. Oregon still wins the national championship, by the way.
I disagree there.
The problem is I don't think we're factoring in how much not getting that bye is going to matter in this thing. Having to play one extra game at a conference while the other team's rested for another week. I think that's going to be a huge factor in the college football playoff.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that only affects conference losers that will be playing in the first round because the conference champions will get
That's what I'm saying.
Off.
That's what I'm saying. You're saying Penn State's going to win, therefore Oregon's going to have to play in the 5-seed game.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. Fair point. Fair point.
Connor, what's the score?
Score here, I think it's going to be a close one, but I like Oregon. I like Oregon to win 23-20. I think it comes down to Penn State final possession. They don't get it done.
Okay. Yep, I've got Oregon 24-21. I think Penn State barely covers that number, just barely.
Barely.
Oregon flirts with another loss, just like we've seen all year.
Yep, they flirt with another loss, and then it comes crashing down in their first-round matchup in the college football playoff. The number 1 seed goes down in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, right. Who?
Yeah,
UNLV's beating them. Come on. So we all think low scoring affair here. I want to go on record as well. I am going Penn State and the under. This is not going to be a high score.
I like the under. I like the under here.
Real quick, I don't hate the under, but stay away from me. I'm not betting the game unless I have to for the parlay. Then I will.